Your phone calls here in a minute. Liz, first, let's get to our guest, please.
Who is the man that would risk his neck for his brother, man? Chef!
Chris Arps in the house. What's going on?
Buenos dias, mi amigo.
Hola. ¿Qué
Hola.
pasa?
Me and
Arriba, ándale.
Me and Becky binge watched Narcos.
Oh, did you
on
really?
Netflix this
Okay,
weekend. So
all
I'm
right.
Reading all those, what do you call that underneath?
Oh, the subtitles?
All the subtitles
Okay.
for like 8 shows kind of makes you want to talk Spanish.
It
That's
does.
good exercise
And the DACA
for your
decision
eyes.
made you bring that up. Yeah, I'm sure. There were some Spanish slurs being thrown around at Trump today, I think.
Yeah, and I had one on my Facebook page.
Did you?
Hasta la vista, baby.
Is that right?
Is that a slur?
I don't think so. No, that's
It's not
Arnold
Spanish.
Schwarzenegger.
That's not Spanish?
That's not Spanish.
Hasta la vista?
That's
Yeah, I think it
Spanglish?
is.
Is it?
Yeah,
That's
it is.
Spanglish.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, I
have to look that up.
flunked a high school semester of Spanish. So
I
know
took
that.
French, so I
So
don't know.
you know, because
Yeah.
you had to do it twice.
3
Yeah,
times.
there are 3 times. Nice. What's your take on the DACA decision this morning?
Well, I pretty much agree with you on this. Major legislation like this should be passed by Congress, not by executive orders. And I've said this many times that instead of the dreamers and their advocates being mad at us who want to just follow the law, they should be mad at their parents for bringing them into this country illegally and putting them in this precarious position. I do have compassion for them, but I've been getting a lot of likes on my Facebook page because I put up, as soon as I see the same compassion for little black girls and little black boys that are in these jacked up neighborhoods, in these jacked up schools, then I might care about a dreamer. But until then, get out of here with that.
There you go. All right. Let me get to my friend Hasha McQueen, who I ran into this weekend at a
Hasha.
gun show of all places.
I love
Yes.
Hasha.
How are you?
Places. I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
It was good to see you as well. Now, Hasha's also an attorney who deals with immigration issues. So what's your take on this?
All right. First of all, I want to say I congratulate you both on your Spanish.
Ah,
Very, very,
gracias.
very good. No,
Thank you, Hasha.
For those of you who don't know, I am Hispanic. I am bilingual. And, you know, I want to say, Mark, I 100% agree with you, of course. This DACA executive order that was given by Obama was actually a lie to the Hispanic community, really. And when it came out, I actually read the executive order, and I made that statement to people. I would have people that called me and said, hey, how can I get myself legal now under this DACA? Well, you can't. It doesn't make you legal. That is the crazy part about all of this. What he did was he basically did this for political reasons. He restated an old prosecutorial discretion is what they call memorandum from years ago from the 70s that said that judges have the prosecutorial discretion to either deport or let them stay. And this has been going on for years. And yet he acted like he made this up. And it was horrifying because I got a bunch of calls from people who obviously spoke Spanish and were asking me, and I had to be honest with them. I said, this doesn't give you legal status. Just know that. You know, I wasn't really dealing with any of the applications, so I would send them off to different people. But when I told them that, they were like, really? I'm like, yeah, does nothing. I mean, basically, all it does is allow you to work. It gives you a card to work. That's it.
Hush, I got a question for you. You said this was originally put out like in the 70s?
Yeah.
Was this meant as a blanket amnesty kind of like deal? Or was this a case-by-case basis?
No, this was a case-by-case basis, which was the same thing that he was doing. But what he did was he took it a step further, which was to give them employment authorization documents, which allowed them to work, which was a bridge too far, I think, in this case. But the concept of it has been around since the 70s because, let's face it, you know, all of us probably can agree that if somebody came here when they were 5 years old and now they're 25, they don't know any other country. They don't speak another language. You know, this is their country, essentially, right? And so in those cases, like if they're 50 or 60 years old and they've been here since they were 2, you know, how are we going to deport them to another country? It's a death sentence for somebody, right?
Right.
So judges were given the latitude to determine on a case-by-case basis those particular cases. And I'll tell you, judges, for the most part, have been pretty lenient, you know, particularly when it's in those situations where it would be such a manifest injustice, you know, to do something like that. But
yeah.
but Obama took it a step further and gave people cards, which is another completely different thing. Pretending that they had some kind of status when they don't have any status under the executive order or the law. They just don't. All they do is that they have a right to work, which doesn't mean anything under immigration law.
Well, I appreciate the distinction, and getting it from an expert makes all the difference in the world, as opposed to me. Hasha, thank you.
You're welcome. But, in a lot of ways, I feel very angry at Obama because of the way he did it, the way that this was politicized, the way that it was drawn out, like somehow they have some kind of safe haven now when they had nothing. And I would tell people on the phone, look, this can change at any moment. Duh. Because this is just an executive order and it doesn't change the law. Congress should be doing that. Congress needs to do something about this situation.
But he did this because he couldn't get Congress to act, and he was frustrated. He's not going to be able to get Congress to act on this now either, because I think it's a political third rail for people on the Republican side if they simply go along with something like this without extracting something in return, like funding for the wall. Or some sort of common sense immigration reform when it comes to visas or a number of other issues. That would have to be part of it.
Right, absolutely. I 100% agree that DACA, the executive order with the DACA situation, should be repealed and done with. I completely agree with that. That was a lie from the beginning, like I said. It does absolutely nothing but gives people a false sense of security. And it's a shame. It was a shame that it ever happened. But Obama did it. And, like you said, if you're going to be angry with anybody, you should be angry at Obama for lying.
Hasha, thank you so much for the phone call.
Okay.
It's always a pleasure. Yeah, thank you for your call and for listening.
The big elephant in the room with all of this.
Call me an elephant?
No, of course not. I'm calling myself. The big elephant in the room with all this is that basically what the president did was kick this can down the road for 6 months.
Surprise.
And Paul Ryan has come out on record saying that he's for DACA.
I know.
Mitch McConnell has come out saying that he is for DACA. The president of the United States at one time said he has a heart and was for DACA. So we're going to have some type of DACA bill in 6 months. It may not be as stringent as this, but we're going to have something.
There's no, like, for example, there's some other elephants in the room that don't get addressed with this. The idea of anchor babies, that you come into this country knowing that if you have a child when you get here, if your feet are firmly planted in the United States when you have that child is a citizen, and therefore it's harder to get rid of the parents at that point. The DACA program works similarly. If you're willing to let the kids stay, why are you going to kick their parents out who brought them here illegally to begin with? This needs to be dealt with, I agree, in Congress, but not just the DACA Act. I've said this many times, if you will build me a wall and promise me that you're going to fix the visa problems at the same time and set realistic limits on the number of legal immigrants we're going to take into this country every year, I'm willing to talk to you. I'm willing to have the conversation about some sort of a work visa, sort of permanent resident work visa that you might be able to get if you're already here and haven't committed any crimes. But I'm not even having that conversation until we've built the wall and fixed the visa problem. That's got to be done first. It's what Trump ran on. Yeah. It's one reason he got elected, and Congress has got to deal with that first.
I think you're going to have a much more difficult time addressing the anchor baby issue than the DACA issue. I mean, anchor baby issue is in the Constitution. If you come here, have a kid, that kid's a citizen.
But it shouldn't. But that's not what it's. But if you're here illegally, it doesn't. It didn't. Illegal aliens didn't exist at the time that language was put in the Constitution. It didn't. We didn't have immigration laws at that point.
Yeah, when those words were other countries, though.
But Mark, when those words were put in, we didn't have an immigration law in this country. Well, now we do. So you need to be able to distinguish between what happened 250 years ago and what's happening today. If you broke into this country illegally, just because you had a baby doesn't mean the kid is a resident, because neither parent is a resident, the child is not a resident.
I can't, of course, get into the framers' mind. But I think when the Constitution was drafted, we were a relatively young country, and I think they would encourage people coming here have as many babies as you can,
Sure.
so we can make American citizens.
But
and
times have changed.
That's right.
Honestly,
Yeah,
times have changed. It's
Yeah.
got to be updated to reflect that. Lots of people have called in and want to have a conversation about this.
Imagine that.
Chris and I will get to your phone calls in just a minute. 314-969-9797. If a line becomes available, you're listening to The Marc Cox Show.
This is The Marc Cox Show.